I want to start out by mentioning that in this video, Adobe Premiere Pro might look a little bit different than the one you'll be using. This is because I am editing on a Mac, and also that my Adobe has been updated to the most recent software. So even though it looks different, it will still be functioning the same, and the buttons will be the same. So we're going to start out by double-clicking on Premiere Pro, which I've put on my desktop, and that will open the startup menu. So once Premiere Pro loads up, you'll be brought to the initial screen that asks if you want to start a new project, so click that. It'll bring up this window in which you'll title your project. I'm just going to call this one Basic Editing. On the screen you can also choose where you'll be saving it to. All of these should already be preset to your desktop. If you have a folder on your desktop, I find that to be the most beneficial place to keep them, to keep all the files you'll be editing with for easy access. So after you've entered that in, Premiere Pro will open up. Now I want to take a minute here to show you where each of the windows are. You'll find the bin, which holds all of your titles, video clips, audio effects, and music on the lower left-hand side. To the right, you'll find your sequence, which is where you'll do all of the editing for the final video. On the top left is the preview window, which is where you'll select in and out of what amount of footage or audio you'd like to use in your sequencer. And on the top right is the final project window or program, which shows you what your project will look like when it's fully rendered. So to start out, we're just going to move Adobe over to the left so we can get at the desktop, which is where there's files. I've put an SD card that holds the video files we'll be editing with on my desktop, so I'm just going to open that. I'm going to select the file we'll be editing with and drag it over to the bin. After dropping it in the bin, Adobe will begin to import the files. It may take a minute to import the files, but after that we're going to drag Premiere Pro back to where it was, and we're going to make it take up the full screen. Now you'll notice that we have all of our files located in our bin that we'll be editing with. The footage I'm going to be using to show you today will be just a brief amount of wildlife footage of some baby geese. You can create a new sequence by hovering the mouse over this small icon in the lower right hand corner. It will say New Item. If you click on that, a small menu will pop up, and at the top of that is a sequence option. When you select sequence, this will pop up. Now you have the option to name your sequence. I would not bother doing this. Instead, just hit OK and we can go into the settings of that later. Take any of the footage that you'd like to start editing with and drag it from the bin up into the preview window. You'll notice that the preview window is now highlighted. That means it's active. In order to play footage, you can either use the play button, or as a hotkey you can just hit the space bar. And you can select your in and out points either by hitting the in and out buttons, or using I to set an in point, or the O key to set the out point. After you've set your in and out points, click on the middle of the video and drag it down to your new sequence. I suggest dropping it all the way to the left so that it immediately starts with the new footage. A text box like this should pop up when you do this, and it will ask if you want to change your sequence settings to match the footage. Always click yes. As you can see, if you drag or click the slider along the sequence or final program window, it will play the footage that you have on your sequencer. Now dragging another clip up to the top to preview it. Again, we'll select our in and out points. You do this by hitting the I key for in, or the O key for out. There are also two buttons located in the button row on the preview window that are also functioning as the in and out key. Remember, you can use the J key to rewind and the L key to fast forward. The preview window has a slider much like the sequencer and program window. This also is clickable to go to a certain point in your clip, or it's draggable to quickly review your footage. At this point, I noticed that with the newest update of Premiere Pro, my editing tools are found between the sequencer and the preview and program windows. Where those will appear on yours are right here. Now, keeping that in mind, what we're going to do is cut the end of this clip that I just dragged to the sequencer. Now you can cut a clip by hitting the C key and lining it up with the slider. You'll notice when you line it up with the slider, two small arrows will appear to let you know that it's snapped to right where the clip is placed. If it's not, it will cut somewhere either before or after, depending on where you have the mouse hovering over the footage. I also want to cut out the footage at the end here, so I'm going to go to the toolbar. While the toolbar is in a different location on this video, the key will still look the same, which is kind of like a razor blade. So you have the option to click on that, again bring it over and line it up with the slider, and click to cut the clip. If you hit the V key, it will bring you back to the selection tool. Click the middle of the clip that you want to delete and hit the delete or backspace key. Now another way to delete a clip is to right click it, go all the way to the top and select clear. Now I'm going to click on the middle of this clip and drag it to the right until it snaps into place next to my other clip. I also bring the slider back to the beginning and I drag the final clip I have to work with up into the preview window. Again, I'm fast forwarding through this footage using the L key. The more times you hit the L key, the faster it will fast forward. I set an in point. I rewind using the J key. I set an out point using the O key. Now that I have the amount of footage that I want to bring into my sequencer, I drag and drop it into the sequencer next to the rest of the footage I'm working with. Now if you bring your mouse down to the bottom scroll bar, to the small gray square to the right, and click it and drag it, it will zoom in on your sequencer so that all of the footage is easier to view. If you align your mouse right with the edge of the clip all the way to the left in your sequencer and you right click when you have this red arrow, it will give you this small drop down menu. I'm going to select Apply Default Transition to make the footage fade in from black right in the beginning. A lot of films start this way and it makes a much easier transition, although it is not necessary to do this. At this point, between these two clips, rather than a jump cut, which is the traditional cut that occurs when you place two clips next to one another, I want them to fade in between one another. So I'm going to right click between the two clips. When I have the red arrow again, this drop down menu will appear, and again I'll select Apply Default Transition. Now I didn't like the amount that faded, so once again I'm going to click the bottom scroll bar, drag it in to zoom in close to where the transition is. Whenever zooming in, it will always zoom into where the slider is found. Now I'm going to click on the very corner of the transition. A distinctive red slider with a little gray square that's cut in half will appear. That's how you know you have the transition selected and not the clip itself. I'm going to drag that out to about here, zoom back out using the bottom scroll bar, and then play my clip. By doing that, I lengthen the amount of time it took for the transition to occur between the two clips. Now at this point I notice we don't have any audio for these clips. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to our desktop and drag a sample of music into our bin. So again, we'll just click on the top window portion of Premiere Pro and drag that over. Grab our music clip from our desktop or whichever folder we have it stored in, and just drag and drop it right into our bin. After a little bit, it will appear right in our bin, and we can drag that to the preview window. And what I do with audio in this case is I'm going to take the whole clip and drag it into my sequencer, rather than listening to it in the preview window and selecting what portion I want. Whenever you have audio, you have to drag it from this small button here, otherwise it will just skim through the music. So after bringing that down into my sequence, I'm going to use the cut tool, or the C key, to cut the audio right at the end of where my footage ends. Again, clicking the V key to switch back to the selection tool, I'm going to click in the middle of the clip and delete it using the backspace key. Now that I have my audio matched up with my video, I'm going to add a default transition so that the music fades in the beginning of the footage. And then I'm also going to align the mouse until this red arrow appears to the edge of the audio and add a default transition there to both the audio and the video to add a fade out at the end of the footage. At this point in time, I'm going to save my work by hitting Control S. You can also do it by going to File and selecting Save in the drop-down menu. Now that the video is done being edited, I'm going to export the footage so that it can be uploaded to the internet or put on a DVD. By doing this, you can either go to the drop-down menu and select Export, or you can hit Control M. Now, all of your settings should already be set up from the last time we worked together. The only thing you're going to have to do is click on the highlighted text next to Output Name and name the clip whichever you want it to be saved as. You can also select where it's being saved as. Mine is going directly to the desktop, and I'm saving the video as Ducks. Now, all of your settings should already be set up, so go ahead and click the Export button. Depending on what quality of footage and how long the project is, this can take anywhere from a couple minutes to a couple hours to even a couple of days. So I'm going to cut right here and go and come back to the project once it's finished exporting. Alright, now that it's finished, we can go to our desktop or wherever you saved the project to, and you'll see that it's found right here. You can double click on the footage to review it. I highly suggest this. So that's our finished project. And this can be re-imported back into Premiere Pro if you have anything to work on specifically. Alright, and now we're at the end of the tutorial. If any of the segments went by too quickly for you, then please just rewind the video to the segment that is coinciding with the part that you have questions about. What we went over in this video is importing into the bin, the preview window, starting a new sequence, moving objects from the bin to the preview window into your sequence, saving, moving clips, doing default transitions, cutting clips, and exporting and saving. You'll learn more as we go on, and it's best if you get a lot of footage to play with. The more you practice with the software, the easier it will become to use. So again, you have my email. Feel free to email me with any questions you have, and we will set up our appointment soon. Bye.